Our next guest on the Center Ring Esports podcast is a two-time Halo World Champion. He won his first event at just the age of 15. Please welcome, newly signed to the NV Halo roster, and Halo legend, iGotUrPistola. Sir, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going great, man. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Wonderful. As I said in the intro, and as we said before we started recording the full interview, it's just I'm a huge Halo junkie, especially the olden days. That's what got me into esports. That's what got me started to competing. So I'm definitely happy to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the offer, guys. I I wouldn't say I'm gullible. I really wanted to do this, so that's awesome.
Halo's a tough crowd to get in. You believe it or not, you guys are a quiet bunch when it comes to trying to get interviews.
We're like not really known for our content because, Halo started like 2004-ish was
Mm-hmm.
whenever, MLG kind of started taking off. And, content really wasn't the main focus back then. So any of like the older players are kind of they they don't really do content, which is a mistake. But yeah, we're quiet in that sense for sure, unfortunately.
But you guys did have montages back then. Like Halo, I would say kind of kicked off the montage.
Oh, montages back in the day. Oh my gosh,
That
especially
was the
like
content.
oh, it was. And then not only that, but like the genre of music back then for it, just the rock, alternative
All
rock,
right.
it was so perfect for
So I'm
montages.
going to ask you this, Pistola, okay?
All right.
Gun to your head, your life depends on it.
Oh,
You're picking Papa Roach, Breaking Benjamin, Bodies by Disturbed. What's another? Help me out here, Stola. You
uh,
know them.
there's so many songs from that time period.
Those
Let
were
me
like the
think.
three big ones I remember, like Papa Roach, Breaking Benjamin, and Bodies from Disturbed. Like,
Was it Bodies from Disturbed or was it Drowning Pool?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. You're
yeah.
right. You're right. Look at me, a poser. I'm a poser. Yes.
No, hey, memories are tough. I can't even remember all the different like because I'm a big music fan, and I can't remember all like I mean obviously there was like Foo Fighters as well. They put
Yeah.
in montages back then, and they didn't really put as much grunge. Like Nirvana really wasn't like montage music as much. But
No, no.
but if I had to pick out of those three, that's tough.
They're the
Ah,
montage classics. They're not the EDM kids use today. They don't even know.
EDM it's solid, but it's not my favorite. But I would have to say probably Breaking Benjamin
That's a
is
classic. Classic
yeah.
montage right there.
But
Um,
speaking of music, I'll say my top two favorite bands of all time is Tool and Pink Floyd.
okay.
And they did have Tool actually back in the day in
Yeah,
some montages.
Tool's classic though. Did
Yeah,
you
they are.
do you appreciate New Tool?
I actually love New Tool. They came out with their new album after a 13-year
Mm-hmm.
hiatus back in August. Oh my God, it was so good.
Yes.
It's a little slower for some people because it's more like a epics, so the songs are like 10 minutes long
Right.
to like 15 minutes, but I personally love it.
I think
What
if
about
you're,
you?
yeah, I mean, I love Tool as well. So I think if you like Tool,
Ooh.
then you'll like the new Tool. But if you're like, I've heard of this band. They came out with some new stuff. Let me listen to it. Then you're gonna be like, what is this?
Oh, I agree with that because there's different ways to like, structure songs and like epics are not really popular because it's not a condensed 3 to 4 minute
Mm-hmm.
kind of like in your face like okay, listen to this. A lot of action going on.
Yeah,
It's more of a crescendo in a lot of the new Tool songs.
yeah.
So, yeah,
But
I
I
agree with that
appreciate it.
100%.
As a Tool
A,
fan, I appreciate it.
Oh,
a
me too.
10-minute song would probably drive out a lot of the younger crowd nowadays. Attention spans are a little bit lower now.
Yeah, it is true. It's just well, we're in the age of content, so it's like, what can you fit within 3 to 4 minutes, which is like commercial music, and so
Yeah.
it's yeah, you're not going to be hearing a 10-minute song on a radio station in general. So it's tough. Attention spans are tough. Even my own nowadays. I'm transitioning where I'm like, all right, yeah, bang, bang. Things have to be happening.
So I'll segue that. That's a perfect segue into some Halo talk as you talk about attention span. And in approximately 5 days, we will hit our 6-year anniversary of Halo 5, if I'm not mistaken. 5 or 6 year anniversary.
I think it came out in 2015.
Yeah.
So I
So
guess
five,
5.
5 years
Yeah.
coming up.
Oof, man.
Does
A
that
long
does it
time.
does it feel like 5 years to someone who plays it?
It definitely does because, as a Halo fan, you're used to a game coming out like every 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've been waiting, 5 years now for the new Halo. And it's definitely felt like 5 years. But at the same time, I haven't been grinding as much because there hasn't been as many important tournaments in the last couple of years. So the last couple of years have somewhat flown by for me personally. But yeah, 5 years, man. Wow.
I mean, in esports, 5 years is an eternity, right? I mean, going from what you were 22 at the time when Halo 5 came out, now you're what 27, right, or somewhere around there.
Yep. I'm
Um,
turning 28 November 20th.
how
Oh
have you
man.
kind of grown during this Halo? Like, obviously you're waiting for the next game at some point, right? There's some point where everyone's got to be like, okay, we need something new, So over the 5 years, I'm just kind of curious, like, what's changed for you in the sense of your passion for Halo?
Uh that's a hard question because really for me it's been I want to do something new. And I'm I'm not that kind of person, like, especially now where it's like, I don't care if it's classic Halo or if it's like modern Halo. I just want to play a first person shooter game that's new, that's fresh to me, new maps, new mechanics, just fun overall gameplay. But uh, so it's a tough question to answer because,
No, that's okay because that gives me something else that I kind of want to ask that Tim and I were talking about before the show. You talk about doing something new. Did you ever think in that 5 years about jumping ship to go do something new?
I I did, I but it wasn't anything crazy because it's like, because if I go over to COD, right, for example, that's a really tough scene to break into because it's kind of already established. And ever
Mhm.
since they did the COD League, that it makes it even harder now. So I mean, I thought even way in the past, like when Halo 4 was launched, I thought about going to COD, but I was like, I'm gonna stick it with Halo and see how it goes because I'm a Halo fan. I love Halo. I want it to succeed. I'm gonna stay here, and and then, yeah, obviously during this hiatus, you have like players like Frosty and Shotzi who left
Mhm.
Halo 5 and they went to COD and they did great things. And so I didn't really think about COD, but I thought about what could I do in gaming outside of competitive gaming. And obviously the number one thing is like content creation, but
Yeah.
man, I don't know if I'm creative enough
It's
about
hard. It's its
it's
own
really
game,
tough.
you know?
It's tough because the competition it's still a competition of itself because there's so many people that are creating content now, and
Well, it's also like, so I'm 30, and so doing the podcast and everything, like I know my limits when it comes to when we're trying to edit a video. What takes me 7 hours to create just a transition of a scene will take some 14-year-old kid half a second and do twice as much.
yep, that is true. It's crazy because that reminds me when I was actually playing Fortnite like crazy back when I was playing it when it first launched on console, and then I was like I'm gonna play it on PC. So it was like one of the first PC games I transitioned to. And it took me like 3 months to be able to, mouse and keyboard and do some stuff, and I thought pretty good at it, and I was like, "Man, I might try to play Fortnite." And then, man, there's just,
Then the
you know
sweaty lobbies kicked in and you realized real quick.
well, it's like I can compete, but I'm not gonna including a battle royales are really tough to be, like,
Yeah.
consistent in because it's just
The nature
RNG
of the
based.
game. Yeah.
But, yeah, I thought about doing that, especially because the World Cup and everything, and I was like, "Man, I could try this." And a lot of actually, like, Sniped Down and other people were like, "You should do it, man. You can do it." And I was like, "Man, I'm gonna try." But then man, there's so many young people, because back when I first started playing Halo, I was 14 when I went to my very first Halo event, and I was cracked. Like I was just young, grinding, and I just think about how crazy is it, these like children that are growing up on the internet and they're growing up on mouse and keyboard, and they're just, man, there's going to be some beast gamers within the next, like, I mean, they're already right now, but even like 5 years from now, it's going to be insane.
Now, do you think? Sorry, Tim. I just want to ask one more off of that. Do you think that, or I guess, what do you think Halo needs to do, if anything, to maybe draw in that younger audience, right? Because Halo's audience is people closer to our age. Like we grew up on Halo, and now there's been this gap. And as you know, gaming has evolved so much over the past 10, 12 years where you have so many choices of what you want to play, right? Like on an annual basis, there are 5 to 10 new esport games launching that can attract people's attention and make a wave for a minute there. Do you think Halo needs to do anything? And if so, what do they need to do to maybe drive up the hype and kind of bring Halo back to what we would consider the glory days?
Well, personally, I think I don't think Halo I don't think classic Halo will ever bring back it it's, to the kind of glory days of Halo, because it's not fresh and new. So people kind of need that new fresh feeling. So but at the same time, Halo is a niche group as well. And so you need to obviously bring older people back, but really the main audience is going to be younger generation of people who are coming into play. So you kind of have to have it where, in my opinion, kind of more advanced movement, but not too crazy to where it's like too far. So it's like finding a nice balance between like pleasing old Halo fans and then obviously the new group of new generation. But it's going to be really tough to pull off, because at the end of the day, like Halo is Halo, but Halo is also a first person shooter game. And
Right.
so you look at COD comes out every year, and there's been countless CODs where people are like, I don't like this. But Halo, takes years for a game to come out, and so that's a whole different aspect of it in of itself. So you almost have to nail it
Yeah.
essentially first try. And obviously, it's been 5 years since Halo 5, so they've had a lot of time to think about it. And we saw a little bit of gameplay, right,
Hmm.
from the campaign, and it looks like it's a little bit slower than Halo 5 to me. And so I think if they kind of keep it at almost like an Apex, like somewhat like Apex mechanics, I think it will. Because I mean, there's not going to be 30-year-olds who are going to come back and grind the heck out of Halo, besides
Right.
like casually, not competitively. So you really got to kind of focus,
Well,
in my
they
opinion, on the
need
younger
that.
audience.
They need to be. I've often said Halo needs to innovate, but not reinvent the wheel. Right? They need to just spice it up, make it more sexy for that 14-year-old cracked out kid who wants to play it, right? And not get bored with it.
That is true.
So
Uh,
that's what they need to do.
I agree with that, because it's very delicate, but you're not going to please everyone. So you essentially got to think of, like, in my opinion, the future generations that are going to be playing your game more than the older generations at this point.
Well, I think one thing too that Infinite, a problem, or maybe not a problem might be not the right word, but a situation Infinite's going to run into that Halos in the past never had to run into, is now you are also trying to appeal and appease the PC crowd, which is a completely different beast than the console crowd, in my opinion.
PC master race, you got to be careful.
Oh, I'm part of it, sir. Part of
Oh,
it.
I thanks to Fortnite, actually, I transitioned to be in that way myself, where I'm like, man, why did I take so long?
Are you happy that? I mean, I guess the rumors out there are that Halo, maybe from a competitive standpoint, could be played on PC now, whether that's mouse and keyboard, controller, however they do it. I'm sure it's going to stay controller based, but just like we've seen COD transition from PlayStation 4, now it's going to be on PC for the new Call of Duty. Do you kind of hope that's the direction it goes for Halo?
I do hope that, in the sense that, because you can't really, I don't think you can be like, hey, no one can play with controllers. So that people will be able to plug in their controller and play on a PC. But PCs are just so far and beyond consoles. Consoles can't even keep up. They announced the new consoles, and then like they just announced new PC parts, and the new PC parts are just so much exceptionally better
Yeah.
that you can't even almost compete. So it's best for like a competitive environment, right? Playing on the best device, so you can essentially get the most out of it. Um, but it's really tough, right? That goes to the whole like aim assist controller.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, it's very tough. So you're gonna have like obviously haters out there, no matter how you go when it comes to that.
And I think with Halo 2, it's like, I mean, you have people like yourself who's a veteran, you're right, future Halo Hall of Famer, and they don't want to isolate you guys out by saying, hey, we're switching to mouse and keyboard, deal with it. And then you lose, the names of the game. You don't want to do that either for if you're a league.
That is true. Yeah.
Would
It's
you
really
try to
tough.
make the transition to mouse and keyboard if they went that direction?
I would, and I think I would enjoy it. It depends on the game too. Like for example, Halo 5, I feel like movement wise would have been really tough on a keyboard. Like eventually people would have got it probably like a couple months. But Halo 5 was very cracked movement and it was very advanced. And so it was great with a controller because of the directional, the joystick was easier to kind of move around. But I've always said this. I feel like the aiming in Halo 5 would have been better visually, like for a spectator with a mouse, because the game was so fast that it would have been really fun to like watch somebody and know like there's no aim assist or bullet mag. They're actually hitting those shots. So I mean, I would love to play with a mouse and keyboard, but at the same time, I don't see them doing that for the simple fact that Microsoft is making a new console and Microsoft is Halo, and they're gonna want to at least show off their new console to some degree, and they're gonna want to show off like, well, this is our new controller, and so it's gonna be really, I don't. It's a delicate balance, but I just don't see them completely, cutting console or controllers out.
How involved are the pros? Maybe yourself, right? How involved are you guys with like the development of the new game? Does Microsoft or 343 reach out to you guys to try to get your input on multiplayer and things like that?
Uh, we talked to 343 a little bit, but it's nothing crazy because they actually have a pro team where a bunch of pro players have quit competitive gaming and they have a group. They did that with Halo 5 as well, but this one is more structured and it's a whole different process now. And so we don't really get as much, we don't really get to say too much about it to
Mm-hmm.
them. But what we're hoping for is like a beta or a flight. So just early access so we can play the game early and then we'll be able to kind of at least flesh out the things that are already established. Because it's really hard to come up with something on your own, but when something's already established, it's easier to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I might not be able to be like, all right, well, we should put this in the game or do that. But if you show me a product, I'll be able to go, well, this isn't good because of this.
At
And
least balancing and tuning, right? That's
yeah,
where your input can be super useful. I would like to see pros involved kind of from the beginning of development, especially when you have this type of span in between games. Like with Call of Duty, I kind of get it. It's a yearly release. So if they don't want to go with the back and forth with pro players, like that could be too much on an annual basis to have to do, especially with different development teams. But with Halo, the pressure is truly on 343 to get this right. Especially with the gap that we've had. I feel like the delay kind of speaks to that, right? It's not a bad thing that they delayed it. It's just it shows that I think the willingness of we need to get it right the first time around, because now we've seen it. Once people leave a player base, it's too hard to go bring them back. Like it's unlikely that somebody comes back outside of the pro scene, right? This is more for casuals talking. So I do feel like they should involve players more in their process with this type of development cycle that they do.
I agree with that. Like back in when Halo 5 was first released, about like a year and a half, almost 2 years before the release, they actually flew out a bunch of players and I was one of them, and we had to, sign NDAs and do all this stuff and played the game early and gave our input. But we haven't done that this time around. And who knows, maybe COVID could be an issue for that for this year.
True.
I don't know.
True.
But yeah, it's very tough if a game if if you have a if essentially if the game doesn't come out just right and a fan base leaves, they won't stay because there's so many different games to play, right? I can just go on Steam and then I can just go through a list of games and then just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this out." And if you have a bad taste in your mouth from another game, what's the point of coming back?
Well, and two, it just again the world now. I mean, even from 5 years ago when Halo 5 came out, you have Twitch now, and a streamer can make or break your game, right? If the right streamers, I know like Summit, he loves Halo. Like he's the one, like I would say S tier streamer that really shows support for the Halo side even now, right? Like he loves it and everything there. But God forbid someone says like the game sucks or they have 30,000 people watching and then some bug happens, right? Like that could also kill a game before it even starts.
That is true. I remember because Halo Reach back in like December came out on PC for the first time, and Summit was just really upset because the aim assist and bullet mag was so powerful with controller, which makes sense, right? Because there's more frames, so there's
Yeah,
more
uncapped
frames.
rates and all that.
Yep. So if there's like, you're like 200 frames, there's gonna be more stickiness because there's more frames for the aim assist to lock onto. Same with bullet mag. And so it made it where like controller players were so dominant because the game wasn't designed around the idea of being on PC. And so, he obviously, he had reasonable complaints about it, but so many people came at his throat for saying those things. And and it's not like Reach is going to blow up anyways, right? Because
Right.
it's already an old game. But that same situation can happen, like you're saying, in Infinite and any other type of games where like, even X2C played. He played like Halo 2 whenever it first launched, and he was like, these controller players, I don't get it." And then he plugged a controller in, and then he couldn't aim or do anything. And then everyone was like, "What the heck?" Like,
Like you
kind of.
still got to be skilled, right? But those that are skilled would have an advantage in those scenarios because
Oh,
of
100%.
the frame rates, and that speaking of like kind of the Master Chief collection that just came out, as that was launching, Tim and I's excitement started to jump up because we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna play through the campaigns and kind of get ourselves hyped for Infinite. But that part of it was a turnoff for us when we went into the multiplayer, right? Because you could tell there was a distinct advantage to those that were good on controller. It was like, wow, now they're like a good player became a really good player, a really good player looked like a pro in the game all of a sudden. So I do hope that these are some of the things, with crossplay now being implemented, and it's going to be there between PC and Xbox, that they find a way to make that stuff comfortable day one, and it's not like we're having to hit rewind to figure out how to fix those problems.
I agree, because like for example, right, like Snipedown's been playing Apex a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on TSM now, which is dope. And but I remember like obviously people were always talking about aim assist on PC, and for that game specifically, the developers turned down aim assist on PC and not on console, so that to try to balance out the whole frame issue of it being too sticky. And so that kind of goes back to the whole like if Infinite is going to be on PC, then they need to already be calculating that before release
Yeah.
so that try to minimize it as much as possible so we don't have, XQC coming over and playing and then being like these controller players, man, and not only that, but they've been playing Halo 2 and stuff
They
for so
just
long that they're
well,
so good.
I mean, even then, like, so I grew up on Halo. Anuj did not play it as much, but he's played it, right? He's familiar with it. So I get in and I'm like doing all these call outs and everything, and then it's like everyone on PC are like, bro, what are you talking about? So it's like not only do you have like the advantage of just the game knowledge itself, but then you add in the aim assist if they have the controller, and it's a bloodbath.
Yep, it's just you're going against some people who are very experienced that they haven't got off the game in like almost a decade.
Yeah.
And they know all the information that they need to know, and then you have the controller aim assist problem. And it's like obviously people on a controller can, they aim well with the controller. So if you give them more aim assist, it's really tough. Like Halo 5 kind of had
Very.
that problem, in the sense of there was more bullet magnetism, so the bullets will curve more because the movement was so advanced that they had to try to balance it out by having the bullets curve more. And so therefore, like there's certain like no scopes that don't look like they even hit, but the bullet curved so much that it did. So that, they got to think about that for Infinite as well. It's like trying to like, all right, this is how fast the movement's going to be. We can't have the bullets curve too much. So man, I like to call it essentially like it's spinning plates. Like you have like, a bunch of spinning plates around you, and you have to make sure that you're giving everything the right amount of attention, or the plate's going to fall and break.
So
Quickly.
Yes,
Yeah.
very quickly.
so we're talking about balancing and all that. Let me ask you this then: true or false? Because I have a theory on this one. Games are better when they're not perfect, and the way I think of this is old school backpack reloading, double melee, things like that. Am I fair to say that it's okay to have those type of things, especially in Halo, right? Like the backpack reloading, double melee, like those were almost like a next level technique people would use.
I agree that a game doesn't have to be perfect to be perfect, or your definition of perfect, anybody's, right? Uh, Obviously, Halo 1 had a bunch of glitches,
Mm-hmm.
backpack reloading, double beatdown by throwing a grenade, which also took a lot of skill because the nade radius was so big that if you double meleeed and you threw a nade right next to
Hit
you, you have to
yourself
be
in the
able to get
face.
away.
Yeah.
And then obviously Halo 2 had BXR, which was crazy. Like double shotting. People didn't even know what double shotting was. Like I remember I was in Walshy's chat the other day, and he was like, somebody in his chat said, I remember back in the day, you double shotted my buddy. And the guy was like, did you shoot 2 bullets? Like, did you shoot 2 like clips or whatever? And he's like, nah, man, it must have been lag. So Walsh was just like lying about it, trolling. But that took skill, and it was
Yeah.
like a whole new aspect. So yeah, I think it doesn't have to be perfect to be amazing,
Yeah.
essentially.
Because like for an FPS, you just don't have like button, like I mean, it was all glitches, right? It wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't intended, but it almost brought in like almost like a fighting game button technique,
Yeah,
combo
button.
into it.
Yep.
Like slide cancel in Call of Duty. It's not really meant to be used that way, but you can, right? Like
Yeah.
it's used by all the pros now, and so I think you're right. Like game doesn't have to be perfect to be like in a very good state, right? Like some little quirks here and there are positives. And it's funny because you're talking about all these old things that I really don't know a ton about. Like as Tim said, I played Halo as very much so a casual. I go to my friend's house, we would LAN it up, and that was kind of my experiences with Halo. Not so much recently, but I see now like all the new signings with all these different teams is it's the big boys are all getting signed relatively quick, relatively early in terms of we don't have a release date yet, but it's all the legends of the game. We're seeing them get picked up. So how did this Envy roster kind of come about? Because y'all were together, I think you announced back in June that you guys were looking for a team as like a group. So how did this all come about?
Well, it was a whole crazy situation because Trippy, Zan, and I, we wanted a team, and we ended up picking up Penguin at first, and Penguin was on he was on that Cloud9 roster, but Snipedown took his spot. And so we were like, okay, well, this team's dope. Let's do it. And started looking for orgs and, preparing because everyone kind of figured Halo would come out in like November or December before it got delayed inevitably. And then things kind of hit the fan and things changed where Snipedown got dropped and Penguin went back to that team. And then Frosty left COD and then came back to Halo, and then APG got dropped. So we picked up APG. So it was a whole just it was just honestly just insane. It was a lot of stuff happening within like a week to 2 week period. And honestly, that's probably the most stressful stuff when it comes to being a competitive gamer is all the team switching and trying to be up to date with it all. But then but the thing is even with Penguin, we were talking to MB the whole time because obviously a lot of orgs and players all assumed the game was going to come out at the end of this year, so everyone was kind of getting prepared for that. And then a lot of these teams were already signed in that with the anticipation of that before it got delayed. So technically speaking, I would say like orgs kind of got in almost too early, but not really, because like a lot of these teams are going to be really good. Like Sentinels, for example, they had Sentinels since like January, February, and that's a great pickup for them because they're going to be great, like no matter what. But yeah, so it's been a whole process. It's been on everyone's minds this whole year, and yeah, it's I'm really excited about our team, to be honest. I think the future of Halo is Sane and Trippy. I think they're going to be some of the best players in the game, and I think even whenever I quit, inevitably, because I'm getting old, they're going to still be doing their thing and dominating. And obviously, APG is a veteran. He's been going to tournaments as long as I have.
So you say you're getting old, which is not good because we're both older than you. So that's not good for a Nugenized pro career.
It's all competitive gaming is different.
Were you a little bit more cracked at 14 than you are at 27?
Yes. Energy based, like I thought about it like
time's a little different.
Yep, reactions were a lot faster. Before I broke my right hand, my hand was even better, but that's still not the worst thing in the world. But I do miss those times though. I had so much energy. I would play 12 hours straight and like not even think about it. Like it wouldn't even. I'd be like, wait, oh my god, it's 5 a.m. What happened?
I remember those days where you could just crush a 4-pack of Red Bull and not even think once about your heart.
Nope, you're just like, oh man, I love the way this makes me feel. Nowadays, I drink like a quarter of a Coca-Cola, and I'm like, was that a mistake?
Am I going to be able to sleep tonight?
Yeah, it's like now I go get a milkshake, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I should have had that milkshake.
Now, Pistola, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a former semi-pro in Rainbow Six, Vegas 1 and 2.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So I can relate to being a pro.
Semi-pro.
In Vegas 1 and 2.
Even being semi-pro, like all of that process of that is so hard. Don't
do this.
Thank
don't
you.
do this.
They don't understand they don't understand, Pistola, what us pros go through. They don't understand it.
It is hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. So I was always curious because like when I was a semi-pro in Vegas 1 and 2, there was a clear like line where we started scrimming against like top pro teams, and then you start getting pros on your friends list and things like this, right? And then there's always that moment, because back then I was just playing with buddies from school, and then the other pros will reach out to you to say, hey, why don't we squad up? Why don't we try to make a team, right? I'm kind of curious if you can think back then, because like you said, you started playing at events at 14, won your first event at 15, being a free-for-all with Halo. At what point did you kind of start saying, hey, I'm going to stop playing with friends and start playing this with random dudes and pros that, just for the sake of going pro?
So I started off obviously playing with my friends, and then got to a point where my friends hated playing with me because I was significantly better than they were, which is like, I feel like the ego even saying that, but it was just like they would get really frustrated. And
I mean, you won free-for-all tournaments at the age of 15. I think it's fair to say that you were probably better than them.
Yeah, they got frustrated, and I understood. So sometimes I would, try to dial it back a little bit, and then started playing online and saw these tournaments and was like, what is all this stuff? And somehow like got lucky enough to finally get in like free-for-all lobbies with good players, like semi-pros, and then added them, and then those semi-pros knew pro players like Strongside, for example, loved playing free-for-alls. He played so much back then. And so I like started playing with Strongside, and then he would start adding pros, and I was that guy because like a lot of people in free-for-alls would take their mic out whenever they would play. They wouldn't talk, but I would always talk, which was I was just a 14-year-old.
14-year-old in you.
I'm sure you were so loved in those lobbies.
I was probably hated a lot because I would just like someone like dominated me. I'd be like, "What the heck was that, bro?" And then just just being really animated. And I remember I thinking back then, it's like, man, I probably shouldn't have been doing that. But strong side, for example, and like Walshy and like people like that, they knew about me before going to the first tournament, and then people knew me as the online warrior guy because I would do really well in free for alls consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like strong side and Walshy were watching me play in like amateur bracket because they're like, man, I wonder this guy, is he gonna do it? And strong side was one of the coolest people, like as pro player wise, to me. He was just very supportive, and he, always gassed me up and encouraged me. And then, yeah, my very first tournament, I placed third in free for all. Not gonna lie, I was real nervous.
Well, because I mean, back then, and because they don't do free for alls anymore, do they? Not
On
like
and
they
off,
used to.
but not the way they used to.
Yeah, like back in old school MLG, like that's even how I started competing in Halo was free for all, and one time I made it to the third round, believe it or not.
Hey, that's better than one of my buddies. He got first rounded.
There, see,
I felt bad. Hey, my very first tournament, I got a bye round 1 in 4v4, and round 2 we got knocked into losers and then lost. So I got second rounded. You did better than me technically in that regard.
I
Should've kept
was
going,
a
Tim.
former semi-pro in Vegas 1 and 2. That's were you a former semi-pro in Vegas 1 and 2? I don't think so.
I wasn't, to be honest.
You're probably 12, Tim.
I could still remember when I was eliminated from the free for all, because back then there was split screen, and it was the guy I was sharing the TV with was the one who last second threw a sticky grenade, he stuck a guy, and that guy ran into on midship in Carbine, blew up 2 other people, and the guy who I shared a TV with was the one who jumped me at the last second.
Oh man,
it was brutal.
I thought you were gonna say that he like screen peeked you.
Yeah,
He might have.
Like
He might have.
he probably did throughout the game because it's really hard not to. And that was the hard part. Is like even in 4v4, everyone's playing like split screen, and it was really tough because like in free for all was just no man's land. It was so hard because I didn't realize how hard it was until after I got over the hump, like way later down the line, because like my third free for all tournament, I got 8th place, which was like which means I made to the top 8, and I was in the final free for all, but I got last place. And I was like, man, I'm trash. But then I found out that 2 of the people in that free for all were shooting me across map and purposely trying to make sure that I would lose because they didn't like me.
Like, don't let that kid advance.
They were like, this was the kid that had his mic on during the online matches. Fuck this guy.
Oh, 100%. They hated me. The 2 guys that did it, I won't call them out. They don't really play anymore. I haven't seen them around, but they didn't like me at all. And yeah, and it was also partly because I won the tournament before that, so they were like they didn't want me to do well at all in the next one, which I understand, but that makes it even harder. You can actually have people gunning for you in free for all.
Yeah, I mean, it's free for alls. It's a different animal. It's a different. Not to say it's more like, hey, that's where like the real pros play compared to 4v4, because you also had those people who were amazing at free for all, but then couldn't. It was like the opposite, where 4v4 team setting, they just couldn't make it.
Yep, it's working well with others mixed with a lot of other things. There's so many, like free for all, you don't have to play your life. You could just throw your life away trying to make anything happen. 4v4, you can only do that like calculated risks. You can't be doing it uncalculated at all. And
yeah, you got to be playing for the guy next to you in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game. And I remember I didn't get an offer on a 4v4 team for a very long time, like a top 4v4 team, because they didn't think I could do it, and I was so young. Anybody who was like 14 and 15 didn't get on top teams because they did not want to team with anybody.
Well, it's like I said, I'm like 2.5 years older than you, and I remember watching you win your first event, thinking, man, this guy is so young. But now I'm like, I'm not that much older than you. So it is funny though, because you're right. It's like there's the difference of like, this is a 15-year-old kid. There's no way I would play with him. I'm 17.
Yep. It's crazy how this the couple year difference, including not only that, I looked really young. Like I'm small and just frail
I
looking.
mean, I'm looking at that picture, historic picture, by the way. Like esports Hall of Fame, this needs to be there. The picture of you winning at Meadowlands with your arms up.
You want to know a crazy story about that?
Please.
So the guy who took that photograph, who took pictures at MLG back then, first of all, his name was Linds, like, which is Linds, which is crazy. So it was
Almost sounds
very
like a gamer tag.
it was very well. It's crazy because he was a camera lens and his name was Lens, and so
It was meant
It
to
was just
be.
like, okay, that's wild. But he came up to me right before the finals. And this is my second tournament ever, and he's like, "I know you're gonna win. When you win, stand up in your chair." This is before it happened. He's like, "And put your hands in the air." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Man, don't. All right, man."
Okay,
Like
interesting.
didn't really think anything about it, right? And then I won, and so I did it. That was the only reason I did it. I don't know how I would have celebrated if he didn't tell me before to do it, because
That's
I
actually
was
pretty
like real
awesome.
nervous. Yeah, it was crazy. He was like, "I know you're gonna win," and I was like, What are you saying, man? I could totally get owned here."
Just bomb it right now.
Maybe that was like the confidence boost you needed going into that event, was
That
having
it,
the camera guy tell you this is your show.
well, you know, it's actually also interesting is my dad on because we drove to tournaments back then because my parents came with me, and so we drove from South Carolina all the way to Meadowlands, and he on the way there he's like, "All right, if you win this tournament, I'll make a bet with you. I'll quit smoking cigarettes." And I
Nice.
was so like, I tried so hard, and then I ended up winning. And then yeah, he didn't keep up with the deal.
Yeah, we'll win a 4v4 and then we'll talk.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Win next
No, I mean
tournament. Win next
it's
tournament.
really hard to quit cigarettes, so you know, how much can you really blame somebody?
Yeah,
It's
you know,
tough.
it is
I
what
just
it
never
is.
started.
It is what it is.
That's probably
just
the way to go.
All right, a few more for you, then we can let you go. I did want to ask this because you were, to me, the golden years of esports with Final Boss, Instinct, Triggers Down. How did operating those work behind the scenes? Is it like when you're with a current org now? Because like Final Boss and all them just seemed more back then, like again, when I was like 15, 16 years old, more of just like player ran than an actual org. Is like, how did those operate?
It was all player ran. Eventually, like MLG bought out the rights to like Final Boss, the brand, but they didn't do anything like involving the teams.
Right.
So all the teams were all player ran. There was no orgs. There was like sponsors a part of your team. Like Walshy had individual sponsors of like Red Bull.
Yeah.
But there was no orgs. It was all player ran, and it was
T Squared had Pansonic, which I remember just being mind blowing that he had like a headphone deal.
Yeah, that whole situation was crazy because that's just a whole thing. But yeah, it was hard to get deals. It was really hard to get secure sponsors. And then like when I was on Triggers Down, like we were, you know, not the most marketable team because of like people didn't like us. I remember a fan came up to me and was like, "Hey, we don't like Triggers Down
You guys
because
were
you're
kind of
red."
like not even like fourth man in.
Yeah.
You had Final Boss, you had Straight Whip, Rippin', Carbon, Instinct, and then Triggers Down.
Yep. And so like in 2009, whenever I joined TD for the first time, we won our very first tournament together, and it was mind blowing because we had Hines on the team and SK and Asteria already won tournaments. So everyone thought we were just not going to be that great because 2/4 of the team we never placed higher than fourth. And so we ended up winning, and then like that whole year we ended up being like the top consistent like team. And it was so funny because people loved Straight Rippin' back then, like a lot. Straight Rippin' was like the most popular team at that point, and people would come up to me and be like, "Yeah, Straight Rippin's so much better than you guys," like talking crap to my face, and I'm like, "Man, that's all right."
That kind of sucks.
Yeah, but the funniest one was when a guy was like, yeah, man, I don't like your team because y'all are red and they're blue, and blue's my favorite color, and red makes me think y'all are mean. And I'm like, all right, man. Well, I don't.
Hey, red versus blue is there for a reason, my friend.
That
It's
is
a real
true.
thing. It's a real thing.
But MLG came up with the logos actually. Like they helped come up with all the
Really?
logos. Yeah, and if you actually look at them, you know what's interesting is a lot of them are shields.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, they have. Well, triggers down was a shield. Straight ripping, I think, like it was a claw grabbing a shield or something like that, right?
Yep.
Isn't that kind of
It
what
was
it
a
was?
claw grabbing a shield and like ripping it.
Yeah.
And then trying to think of the other ones, but there's a bunch of like teams that had shields. Like Instinct was kind of cool because they were like their own little look like an owl and
I think
the
it's.
forest
Is it
and
an
you
owl?
see
I
its
always thought it was like
silhouette.
Bigfoot or something.
I don't know what it
Could
really
be an
was.
owl,
They
I
don't even
guess.
know.
Something. It's something.
And then like Final Boss in my opinion had the best logo though. It
Final.
was so
Listen,
cool.
do you want Halo to succeed, Pistola?
I do. I do very much.
You convince them to make Final Boss a team again. I don't care
Well,
who's on it. You just
Just
bring
bring it
back
back.
Final Boss.
that is true. I mean that's why MLG bought the rights to Final Boss so they could sell the merch after Final Boss, you know, stopped being a thing, even whenever like, you know, they had all the COD events and whatnot.
Yeah.
So technically, I think someone would have to buy it back from MLG.
Who would have to buy it back from what, Activision Blizzard now?
Yeah.
That's yeah, I guess so.
Like they own
Because
everything now, it looks like.
yeah, because like a lot of the MLG people moved to this thing called esports engine,
Yep.
Now,
and that's a whole other. And they don't obviously own the rights to Final Boss, I don't
Yeah.
think.
No,
So,
yeah, I think it's stuck with Activision. Because I asked him about it one time, and I think it is with Activision now. So
but
now,
like Straight Rippin, T Squared, he bought the rights to Straight Rippin early on, so that he could have it. And so I think he still right now to this day has the rights to Straight.
still,
Maybe not, or did he
no,
sell
no,
it?
I think what would they were competing not that long ago. Like
Yeah, they
maybe,
competed in Halo 5, and he was like the org owner.
yeah, like within like the last 5, yeah, I guess Halo 5 within the last 5 years for sure.
Yeah,
And then
I
I think they were
remember
maybe even like I saw him Apex maybe? Like maybe he
he
even,
did. Yeah, he played a lot. He plays a lot of Apex.
yeah. So maybe it was just him repping it in Apex, but I know he still uses the brand.
Yep.
He still uses the brand.
now we know, your boss Mike is listening very closely right now, and so I want you to answer this question honestly. What's run better, the player run orgs, or the way Envy is doing things nowadays?
Well, to answer that question, obviously Envy is no doubt about it, because then Envy has changed so much over the years too. And I've known Mike before Envy like took off. Like I was on this thing called Eon Instinct whenever him and Hector were both working together on one org until they split off into Optic and Envy. And it's dude, it was so hard being a player and like trying to do things by yourself back then. So yeah, Envy all the way. It is.
Now, this
Mike
is
has
your
done such a
third
great
stop with
job.
them, right? You've been with them on 2 other occasions?
Yes, I was on their team for like 2 years, and then ended up joining on another team after that. Is it 3 times or is it twice?
According
Looking like
to Halo Esports Gamepedia, this is your 3rd round with them.
Okay, see, I didn't even know.
Andrew with
Yeah,
the green wall.
that's
So
wild.
you've had both sides of the Hector Hastro.
Yeah, I was with them when they were together, and I was with them when separate.
Now, I kind of want to follow up on that actually for Envy. You guys obviously are big names within the scene, so I'm sure you had your picks of offers. I would think, right? That's a total guess on my part. Why choose to go with Envy?
uh, there's a lot of reasons. Envy's growing. They're getting bigger. They're going to be like one of the top like 5 orgs in my opinion in the industry. Like I'm talking like
All of
5,
esports.
10 years from now, like whenever it's like who's solidified as like the ones. They constantly keep getting better and they keep expanding. And I know Mike really cares about Envy, and the company as a whole. And since I've worked with them before, I know so much more about them because it's tough navigating in this space because like a lot of people like there's a lot of young guns coming up. They don't even read their contract and they sign it, and they don't even realize what they're getting into because they just inexperienced. And so Envy is just I'm very comfortable with them, and they actually really care about their players, and they're very understanding. And yeah, they have a great future ahead of them, so I'm really excited to be a part of it.
And now you get to see Hook again, who you teamed with back in 2018 when he, I guess, replaced Rain back in the day. So probably getting to see some of the old gang and maybe get some lobbies going there in the Envy office.
Yeah, actually, his birthday was yesterday, and I
Yeah.
texted him. Yeah, and I was like, "Happy birthday, man!" And yeah, him and I have a great relationship because he was so young. Whenever he's 21 now, but he was 17 when we first teamed. So he was teaming with Miquin, Snipedown, and I, and we're all in our 20s, and so he was just you know uncomfortable because he didn't know us that well. So I wanted to make sure that he was as comfortable as possible because it's tough, man. It's trying to be the best that you possibly can be and trying to fit the standard of competitive gaming, and then also like trying not to be a butthead to the
Yeah.
people around you. Try to
Not
make
to be
everyone feel
a
comfortable and
14-year-old
happy.
kid with an open mic and free for alls.
Yeah, I mean that back then man, I was saying some wild stuff.
The show match
Thankfully,
at Envy is going to be pretty nice if y'all end up doing one of those. But Shotzi and Hook on one team, yeah, they might have a little bit of a fighting chance, with some of those young guns over there and world champions on that team.
um they have two members on that squad that are not only world champions, like well, Shotzi's a world champion in Halo and COD,
Hmm.
and Kyler is a world champion in COD, and he's won Halo events. That's crazy. They're the only team, I think, yeah, has to be in COD that has winners from Halo and COD on the same roster. That's insane. And they'll probably beat up on us, to be honest. If we play like 2v2 Halo 5, they probably dominate us.
And Envy also has a pretty sweet kick-ass new headquarters.
They do.
So
I've gotten tours via like, videos and whatnot, and it's wild. It
yeah.
man, they're like right in like uptown,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, we still haven't
everything.
we were supposed to go check it out and then COVID happened. Mike said we were actually going to try out for the Valorant team and then COVID happened. So again, our pro career taken
Taking a
away
back
from
seat.
us.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sucks too because it's just out of your hands,
Yeah, nothing we could do.
Nothing we can do about it. This dang COVID, man.
It's just ruining everything.
Did you hear me smack my desk there?
I got my wife pregnant again during COVID, so thanks
Dude,
a lot.
could you?
Thanks a lot. It's just ruining everything.
That's definitely COVID's fault.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of COVID babies.
Look, locked in a
Oh,
house
man.
for 6 months with this mustache, you come out pregnant. It's just how it
Yeah.
works.
You should see my mustache right now. It's
Is it back? Did you get
You
it
got
back?
the long hair or the short hair right now?
I haven't cut my hair since January, but back in January
Okay.
I cut it all off, so my hair is really long. It's actually funny. My buddy hasn't cut his hair in like 2 years, and my hair is longer, like it's almost as long, if not longer than his right now. And it's like,
It's
what?
just meant to flow, baby. It's just meant
My
to
hair
flow.
just grows too fast. It's so annoying. But I'm gonna do short hair whenever I'm media appearances and whenever Infinite finally drops and whatnot. Because
That'll be the celebration when Infinite
let's be
finally
honest,
drops.
long hair doesn't look good on me.
It was. You're a beautiful man no matter what, but the long hair
Hey.
was quite shocking.
It was just one of those things where eventually my hair is gonna fall out. So why not
Enjoy it
see?
while you can, man.
Yeah,
As you
see
can
what I
tell
can do.
right here, mine's starting to run away from me a little bit. So
I feel you. Mine's the same boat. Like eventually, I'm just gonna, uh, 3 years from now, my hair is gonna be falling out 100%, and whenever that happens, I'm probably still gonna grow it out like an idiot.
That's how it goes.
No. I'm just gonna cut it real short. But yeah, I just didn't let go of long hair. I just wanted to try it, and So many people thought I was like pulling a hippie thing. They were like, "Are you a
Well,
hippie?" And I'm
it
like,
kind of looked like it, right? You had the
"Yeah,
hippie hair. It was long, like your hair is very straight too, So I can see where they're coming from.
yeah." Everyone was like, "Man, what's going on? Are you like a hippie?" And I'm like, "Nah. I mean,
Just
I
a
respect the
professional gamer.
philosophy, but
Just
I
uh,
just,
just playing video games.
yeah, I just, you know, I can't. I'll never be that person who gets a haircut every 2 to 4 weeks. That's just,
I feel you.
I don't like that. That's just, it's a lot of money, but it's also just so much maintenance.
Yeah.
I just,
Like, you're a
but
pro gamer. You get to live the life you want to live right now. So you soak it up and look, COVID was also a perfect excuse to grow it out. Let's be real. Like,
it's
who wants
true.
to get out and go cut their hair right now when nothing's going on anyway?
Yeah, especially like in the beginning of it all, where it was just like no one knew what they were doing. It was like even more scary to like be like, all right, I'm gonna go into these establishments that aren't prepared.
Yeah.
And so it was, yeah, but yeah, my hair, whew, it's not that crazy, but it's definitely not professional, that's for sure.
Well, you can cut it when Infinite comes out because that's when you have to worry about being professional. For now, let it go. Just
Yep, just you know what they say, let it flow.
let it flow, let it grow. Pistola, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. One super last quick question, and
Okay.
I just want to try to reminisce for people who, from the Halo days. Do you ever play Shadowrun?
I dabbled in Shadowrun. I
Okay.
didn't ever grind it the way like Ogre 2 and Walshy did, who simultaneously were winning Halo events and Shadowrun events.
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but because you brought up Ogre 2, I did scrim against him in Shadowrun.
Oh, did you?
I did.
He was really good at that.
He was ridiculously good. I remember we added him to our friends list through whatever chat service was popular at the time, right? And Shadowrun wasn't huge. Like it was like kind of a cult following. I bring it up on the podcast all the time that it's like the one game that was just ahead of its time. Like it
Yes.
should have been much bigger than what it was. I just don't think people were ready for it.
If it came out in like 2012 area,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know exactly when the best time would have been because it was just it was a hybrid. It was like obviously Counter-Strike mixed with Overwatch mixed with something else.
It
But it was
just
its own thing
it was it was
because it came out first, so it was really just yeah.
great.
I've actually said that multiple times. Oh, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, yeah. But it wasn't difficult to scrim against. Like we had a team and we were okay and stuff, and we were good enough to where the pros were willing to use us as fluffers for events.
That's not a bad place to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you can get your name out there. Networking is one of the hardest things in general when it comes to competitive gaming.
Yeah.
And yeah, being a fluffer, if you can stand out on your roster even, and then who knows where it goes from there.
You just get the
It's
invite.
really hard.
Yep. I feel as a former semi-pro in Vegas 1 and 2, I understand what you're saying.
Did you
Yeah.
hear him? Did you hear what he said there, Justin?
Is my cut out? No, I'm just kidding. All seriousness though, it's very hard to network. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things for me because I like to stay in my own lane. And it's, trying to go into other people's lane to get your name out there is really tough.
Hey, we still got to do it now, even in this role, is trying to get access to players and teams, and that's what I think. The people that listen and enjoy it, they love stuff like this. So it's always great to. It's the hard part, but when it happens, it's a beautiful thing because, like I said, having people like you on is really cool for the listener, and I know they're going to enjoy this bit.
Heck yeah, man. I'm glad to be here, man. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, not a problem. Before I let you go, if we could
Mhm.
get a liner from you, it's like a audio autograph, if you will. You can just state your name and say you're listening to the Center Ring. Might have heard it on
Okay.
like the radio. They'll do it. Disney Channel, things like that.
Okay. I like think about it as the Disney Channel when they did
The little
they
Mickey Mouse
spelled out
ears.
the
That's what
thing, yeah.
everyone's like. Oh, like the Disney Channel. I'm like, yes. If
Yeah,
that's what you
exactly.
need to know, yes.
All right, I got this. All right. My name is Justin. I got your pistola D's, and you are listening to the Center Ring.
Perfect.
That was perfect. And you know what? We will have to have you back on as we get closer to Infinite or either after it comes out. But I would love to get feedback from you on the game and what you're enjoying and just being able to do this again. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll obviously tweet this out. Feel free to share it. We'll tag you on it when we do it and let you guys know when we have it already. But we'll probably be dropping this tomorrow, so it should be up and ready to go for tomorrow.
Wow, that's quick. You guys are fast.
Yeah,
Respect.
this was, like we said, this was a big one, so we're excited. We still got to record this show tonight, so we'll plug it in and we'll have it ready to go, man. So we're pumped to get this out there.
Awesome. Hey, again, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for reaching out, and I'm glad to be here. Y'all are awesome. This was awesome.
Thank you, man. It was super exciting. Glad to have you on, Envy. Like I said, if you make your way down to Dallas, super excited to have you here. And if you need anything, just hit us up. We know the area, so we can help you out.
Sounds good, man. And also, I'll be back. Just let me know when.
Yeah,
100%.
We'll hit you up.
God bless, dude, and wish you all the best. And hopefully, we'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds perfect. Thank y'all so much.
All right,
Take care,
later.
buddy. What a guy.
I mean, we're best friends.
Guy. No, that was good.